In the past year, artist Paul Tracey has travelled to as many piers along the south coast as possible, stretching from London to Bristol, and along the way he's created paintings of each one, including many from our region. His work is now set to go on display, but first he joins me in the studio to tell us a little bit more about this project. Well, Paul, thank you so much for coming in, and we've got a few of your paintings here on display. They're kind of the digitised versions, but just tell us, how did you get started with this project? I understand, was it 30 years ago you painted your first one?
Yeah, it was about 30 years ago when I was living in Greenwich in southeast London. A publican there commissioned me to make a painting for him, and the spec was that it had to be long and thin and typically English. It had to be long and thin to go over his bed in his cottage in Kent. So nothing occurred to me immediately. But he said there was no hurry. So I didn't do anything about it for months. And about 6 months down the line, I was driving along the south coast. And as I went round a bend, there was Eastbourne Pier. I suddenly saw Eastbourne Pier, and that was the painting. That was what he was asking for. So I made the painting. I was very pleased with it. I thought it had lots of possibilities, but I was in the middle of other things, so I didn't really do anything else about it at the time. Anyway, 10 years later, I started, well, for years later, I'd occasionally think about the idea again and think about rejuvenating it and doing some more piers. But I never really got round to it. And then about 5 years ago, I started thinking about it and noticing piers and taking photographs of them. And then about this time last year, about June last year, I decided to make a start. So I got in the car and drove to Bournemouth, first of all, and took some photographs of the pier, walked up and down the pier, had something to eat there and a drink in the cafe, and just generally spent the time walking around it, taking photographs from all over it and from the beach as well, looking up, and as many angles as I could. Then I came back and made a painting of it, and I stuck with that long, thin idea, and turned out quite well. So after that, I did South Sea was the next one, and then after that I did.
I believe that's the one that we've
so
got
there's
here.
South
Actually,
Sea.
yeah,
That was the second one. Yeah. So the sea is sort of quite abstract and almost flat as well, and I could just see lots of possibilities in the piers. There was, it throws up lots of possibilities for handling things in different ways, for painting the sea in different ways, messing about with different colours in the sky and that sort of thing.
I mean, we can certainly see you've got kind of a very blue theme going on. I mean, we might actually have some digital versions of your photos that we
I
can
do
show
sort of
as
use
well,
blue, perhaps too much, but I like blue. That's about it, really. It sort of fits well. It goes well with lots of different other colours, and I try and make an effort to put different colours in the skies, like the Swanage one there. I've got a pink sky, and this one here, the one of Brighton, was in the Royal Society of British Artists exhibition in the Mall, in their annual exhibition this year.
I was going to say, actually, you've got a few more exhibitions coming up where people can actually go and see the real life versions of these paintings.
At the moment there's 4 paintings in the Rye Art Gallery in East Sussex. There's 12 in the Farnham Maltings, and they're there till the end of this month, till the end of May. And then most of the paintings then go to Clarendon Fine Art in Dover Street in Mayfair in central London, and that's where they'll be from there. So there's 27 altogether in the collection, going from quite small 18-inch by 22-inch ones to Bournemouth was the first and the biggest one. It's 5 foot across, so it's quite large.
So this is kind of a collection of piers across the south coast.
All the south coast.
What's the next stage then? Are you going to kind of spread your wings and maybe head northwards?
You get to the stage where you sort of walk into the studio and think, oh no, not another pier. So I've had a little bit of a break and painted some other things. But Clarendon Fine Art in London are urging me to do more piers. So I decided, rather than this time setting out a big number, like this was 27, I'd take them in smaller batches. So I'm going to go up to Scotland in a while. I think there's 3 surviving piers, 1 off Edinburgh and 2 on the west coast. So I'll go up there and spend a week pottering around, looking, photographing, taking sketches, that sort of thing.
I suppose it's a great adventure for you as well, so you get to spend some time actually in each of these seaside towns.
Well, it's nice because as a painter you spend all your time in the studio on your own, talking to yourself or listening to the music or listening to radio or in silence, depending upon what's necessary at whatever stage of the painting you're at. So it's nice to have an excuse to get in the car and go somewhere and having a day out somewhere. It sort of sounds sad, but it sort of gets me out the studio, you know, occasionally. And they're just very interesting. And some of the ones you go and talk to people. Hythe has got a funny little green train that goes up and down the pier, you know, and you can find out about that. It was built in 1917 in a factory making armaments, some sort of armaments, mustard gas, I think, for the First World War.
Oh, wow.
So lots of them have interesting stories attached to them, and you only get those when you go to them and talk to the people there and have a coffee and chat.
Well, it all sounds fantastic. I mean, you've luckily, you say you've brought a few of us to see in there, but if people want to see the rest of your collection or maybe even buy one, what do they need to do?
Well, they can go onto my site to see the whole collection, which is just paultracey.net. To see the paintings up until the end of May is Farnham Maltings. After that, it's either the Rye Art Gallery in Rye in East Sussex or Clarendon Graphics in Mayfair in central London.
Fantastic. Paul, thank you so much for sharing these beautiful pictures with us.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.